Happy New Year. Let's get going. 2024 is going to be a great year. Why do I say that? Because it's the only year we're going to have. So let's make it a great year. It is up to us. Yes, I've been reading apparently a lot of those same kind of you can do it isms. But hey, I'm feeling good about the year. I'm feeling good about the industry and the progress that we're making. I'm also feeling really good about some of this data from homebuilderdata.com, which shows us that if we just look at two data points, basically a couple days after Christmas this year, this past year, 2023, compared to 2022, we are roughly 10% higher in website activity than we were a year ago at the same time. We'll find out in a couple more days kind of where things are truly headed. There's typically a pullback, which we're seeing, but then it'll typically spike further up yet to come. Remember last year in 2023, the new home selling season started right after Christmas and essentially began to end at the time of the Super Bowl, which is when in some years, many years prior, spring selling season actually started. So get out there, tell your teams to get out there, pay attention. Consumers are shopping and looking, and it looks like we may be off to the races. This is going to be an incredibly short podcast because we just wanted to not leave you hanging for a whole week. If you really miss us, you can go back and listen to episode 1 or 4. You probably never listened to any of those back then, many of you anyway. And I want to give you a book recommendation. I know. See, like trope after trope, the first year episode. This book is called Same as Ever. It's by Morgan Housel. He also wrote a fantastic book that you and all of your kids over the age of like 10 should probably read called The Psychology of Money. Same as Ever. Morgan writes 23 different stories about things about human beings that are never going to change, that no matter what technology we have, we're still going to be dealing with as a human species. And what I find really fascinating about this is most of you know that about 12, 13 years ago, I started harassing the entire industry that they needed to read Influence by Cialdini. Back then, I said, hey, this is the foundation of every sales training program you've ever heard of. It also helps marketers understand and convey how and why their job actually does and can influence consumers. But if you liked Influence and you've already read it, this is the sequel. This is the follow-up. And it's the same idea, but again, from a different perspective, meaning to me, this is a book about the implications of those 7, as Cialdini calls it, kind of blind spots of the human brain. And it kind of says, what are the continual and common outcomes that human beings find themselves in because of these blind spots? And it just goes into detail after detail, example after example of things that are the same as ever. It is a great audiobook. If you're an audiobook person, I find that books like this, it's better for me to have actually 2 copies, one hard copy just to underline and to take notes around, and an audiobook. This is definitely one of those books where I would get potentially multiple copies in different formats just so that you can reference it easily in whatever way you want to. I will probably read it through it twice before we get through the middle of January. Again, it's not necessarily anything revolutionary, but it kind of in a single volume compacts a lot of great wisdom. It's not a shortcut. That's a joke for those of you who might be in the middle of reading it now. Came out just before Christmas, I believe, but Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. It is book number 3 in my must read books on human psychology. Influence being the first one, Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely being the second, and Same as Ever by Morgan being the third. So take the next 35, 40 minutes that you don't have to listen to this podcast, get on Audible, or newsflash, if you are a Spotify, I sound like a combination of tropes and commercials on this short episode. If you are a Spotify premium subscriber, you know what you get now included in your monthly subscription is a certain number of hours, I believe, of audiobooks. And so you're like, I don't have Audible, Kevin. That's great. Just use Spotify and search up Same as Ever and hit play. If you're a paid subscriber, you can listen to it there. But take the next 30 minutes, get a head start on that book. We'll see you back next week with a full episode of Market Proof Marketing. Hope your year is off to a fantastic start.